Clementina Burns, the beautiful young woman who stole the minister's heart and journeyed with him to the far side of the world. One of the interesting things about Otago as a Scottish and Presbyterian colony is how its leaders were married to women from Episcopal or Anglican backgrounds. This was true for both William Cargill and Thomas Burns, the two men who above all others were responsible for making Otago an exclusively Scottish Presbyterian settlement. Cargill's wife was English, while Thomas Burns's wife, Clementina Grant, was the daughter of an Episcopal minister. Though she was born in Edinburgh in 1803, Clementina lived most of her life in southern England, where her father was a canon of Chichester Cathedral in Sussex. Despite this Episcopal church background, the Grants also had strong connections with the more dominant Presbyterian church. When Clementina was 22, she returned to Scotland to look after the household of her widowed uncle, who was the Presbyterian minister here at Moncton in Ayrshire. There she came into contact with Thomas Burns, who was minister at nearby Ballantrae. According to Burns's biographer, it was love at first sight. The couple were married here at Moncton in 1830. Fortuitously, if tragically, Clementina's uncle died the day before the wedding, and Burns was invited to take his place. Now, this was one of the best paid ministerial posts in rural Scotland, and securing the position was a real coup for the young couple. During the years in Moncton, Clementina gave birth to 5 children, and Thomas built a new 800-seat church. They were comfortable, prosperous, and very happy. This made it all the harder for the family when Thomas joined the dissidents who had formed the breakaway Free Church of Scotland in 1843. His decision meant giving up his post at Moncton and the comfortable manse and substantial income that went with it. Burns later boasted with considerable pride of the foursquare support he'd received from his wife. Even as the crucial disruption meeting was going on in Edinburgh, she was busy packing up their household, ready to leave their lovely home for an uncertain future. She would later have to leave 2 young children buried in the nearby graveyard as well. Soon after, Thomas committed himself to the proposed Free Church settlement scheme in Otago by accepting the role of its minister. For the next 4 years, he travelled extensively around Scotland to promote Otago. Clementina held the fort at home and prepared her family for emigration. This adventurous spirit made her an ideal pioneer. No wonder she was the love of her husband's life. He was both besotted with and devoted to her. It's remembered that when she was out at some social function in Dunedin, he would pace about at home, waiting for her to return. For me, this love story humanises the Reverend Thomas Burns in a way that nothing else does. It also connects him to his famous uncle Robert, a man who loved women and who, despite multiple infidelities, loved his own wife above all the others. Clementina Burns would have been a notable personality in pioneer Otago simply by virtue of being the wife of the minister, but she was in fact a strong personality in her own right and widely esteemed by members of Thomas's congregation. Now, this is her calling card case, a relic of the social custom of the day whereby the minister's wife would go and visit new arrivals to the parish, which in this case would often be new arrivals to the colony. Thomas was apparently absolutely useless on the domestic front and totally dependent on his wife and children for all practical matters. It's recorded that he once stood up to preach in First Church with a bright yellow handkerchief poking out of his breast pocket. But all eyes turned to Clementina, since everybody knew that she laid out all his clothes and therefore she must be the one guilty of this affront to Calvinist sensibilities. Clementina survived her husband by 7 years. After his death in 1871, she returned to Scotland for a time and came back to Moncton for a nostalgic wander around her old home. She died in Dunedin in 1878, aged 74.